All right, welcome back to the Prez podcast with Kian. And we're so happy to have you with us. We're going to do a week one recap and a Thursday night preview of the matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings. Well, let's get into it. Let's talk about week one. And I always want to remind people about week one. Week one, we always get crazy results. Things when people didn't predict. We've been talking all off season about these teams, the roster changes, everything that's going on, and we all think certain things are going to happen and can be exciting. And then week one happens, and a lot of things change, and some don't, and we're a little shocked by some of the results. But we'll get into it. Let's start Thursday night. The Detroit Lions. That's right, the Detroit Lions go into Arrowhead and beat the Kansas City Chiefs 21-20. As they celebrate their Super Bowl 57 championship. It was a great way to start the season. A lot of people had a lot of hopes for the Detroit Lions, a lot of predictions. They were favorites to win the North, but really wondering if the Detroit Lions could handle this kind of big stage and this opportunity. And they do pull out the victory. I will say they did have a little help from Kadarius Toney. Obviously, him dropping 3 passes. One of them ends up being a pick 6 for Brian Branch. Had a big factor in this game. But I was impressed with how well their defense did play. They did hold KC to 20 points, made Patrick Mahomes work for it, and Dan Campbell has to be really proud of how his team played.
Yes. So, of course, the Chiefs didn't. People thought that they, the defending Super Bowl champions. Of course, they're the favorite to win, but the Detroit Lions come out with the win by 1 point, very close. Their rookies, I think they played very well. Jahmyr Gibbs had a good game, and David Montgomery also. Their run game did pretty good. Sam Laporta did good. Brian Branch with the pick 6, he looks like he's going to be a really good player. Jack Campbell had a few good plays. Their draft is looking to be good as of right now. Of course, with some questions out of their strategy and what maybe they were thinking of taking, like a running back that early. Like maybe if Bijan was available, maybe that would have been reasonable. But taking Jahmyr Gibbs and then a linebacker, but it looks like it's working out.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
Yes.
Next up, Atlanta takes care of business at home against Carolina 24-10. Now a lot of first round pick quarterbacks struggle in their first game. It's pretty common. So we're not going to grade Bryce Young too hard on his first game in the NFL. There's a lot to deal with, a lot to handle, and there's a lot of hype around this Atlanta team for a lot of reasons. They got Bijan Robinson. They had a great run game. They brought in some veterans this year. So there's a chance they win the division. Probably them versus the Saints for that title.
Yep.
But I thought Arthur Smith did exactly what Arthur Smith wants to do. He had a two-headed running back with Bijan and Algier, and not only were they the leaders rushing the ball, they were the leaders receiving the ball. They barely threw the ball down the field. Drake London didn't even have a catch, or I don't know if he got targeted. And so it's not a surprising result. I thought Atlanta would handle Carolina easily, and I think there's going to be some growing pains in Carolina. We'll see how Bryce Young progresses throughout the year, but I don't have high expectations for them as a team. For Atlanta, they're going to probably win some games this year. They have an easier schedule. They play an easier division. I do think Desmond Ridder is going to hurt them if they ever get into the playoffs and hinder them unless he really develops to give them more of a balanced attack. But for right now, running the football, playing defense, they can win some games.
Yes, I think their run game did very well. The carries were split pretty evenly, with Algier getting most of it, and they both did very well. I believe like 5 for Algier as an average and 5.6 for Bijan. Bijan had that great receiving touchdown, made two men miss.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's looking very good for both of them in their future. The run game is looking good, and that's what they're trying to establish. That's what they want to focus on in Atlanta, and I feel like if they pound the rock, they just run the ball down the rest of the NFC South, then they have a good chance at winning the division between them and the Saints. So, yeah.
Next up, another rookie quarterback, Anthony Richardson, getting his first home start for the Colts against Jacksonville. But Jacksonville pulls out the win, 31-21. Again, a lot of hype about this Jacksonville team. Obviously, the second half of the season, that made that amazing comeback to win the AFC South over the Titans last year. But Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson's second year in the system for Trevor Lawrence. I think we're going to see some growth. Obviously, the addition of Calvin Ridley to an already good offense. Obviously, Tanks Bigsby also adding to that offense. So a lot of weapons on offense. For me, the question will be the defense. I did think Anthony Richardson played better than I thought he would. I thought he looked really terrible in preseason as far as passing the ball. But he showed some efficiency with the ball. He ran the ball a little bit more. I want him to be a little more careful with his body, take care of it. He got hurt late in that game. Hopefully he's good for week 2. But, if they get Jonathan Taylor back, maybe week 6 or 7, they can really show some progress, maybe some hope for the future. There are some veterans in Shaq Leonard and Forrest Buckner, but this team probably needs some more pieces, a little more weapons for Anthony Richardson to truly develop. But if you're Jacksonville, it's a good way to start. There's a lot of hype for them, and maybe this is the right step in the right direction. They can win this division and maybe get another home playoff game.
Yes, the Jacksonville Jaguars, their offense looked very good. Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley had a great game. He really, like Christian Kirk, who's the wide receiver one last season, he didn't have much. I mean, that just shows how much Calvin Ridley just got so many targets and had such a good game. Zay Jones was actually more of the wide receiver too. And their running game looked good. ETN played well. Bigsby looks like he could be a good, like thunder and lightning. And
yes, him and
as
ETN.
a power back.
Yeah.
And their offense is looking very potent. And I agree with we're talking about with Anthony Richardson. He looks like he has the potential to be great with a lot of development.
Right. Needs more games under his belt. Right. Didn't play that much in college.
More experience.
All right. First, maybe surprising result. Cleveland takes care of Cincinnati at home, 24-3. Now, if I told you Cleveland was going to win this game, you may have been, not surprised by that. They did beat them last year with Jacoby Brissett as their quarterback. So, not a surprising result. It's how badly they beat Cincinnati. They held Joe Burrow to 92 yards passing. This game wasn't close. It was just kind of methodical way, Cleveland probably wants to win games and run the ball, play great defense. And boy, did they play great defense. Jim Schwartz, as a defensive coordinator, really had his guys flying over the ball. Myles Garrett doing crazy stuff on that D-line. I'm not surprised by this. We got to remember, though, Joe Burrow had that calf strain, didn't practice all preseason. This is really his first live action. I think they look a little tentative on offense. I think Cincinnati will get better. I think Cleveland's just a bad matchup for them. Joe Burrow's not had great success against Cleveland. But this division is going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And you know what? Maybe Cleveland's a surprise team.
Yeah, I agree with you on that last part. I think they could be a dark horse. And yes, they played very well. People forget about them. They really beat Cincinnati very, very well. Cincinnati doesn't do that great in these divisional games. And in the season opener last year, it was not a great game.
Yeah, lost to Pittsburgh, yeah.
Yes, and I feel like this is good for the Browns. They have reason to get excited, their fans. Cincinnati, I don't think this in the long run. I don't think this matters that much. However, it was quite a stomping. So maybe there's a bit of a reason to get worried, but I still think that they're going to be very good.
I agree. All right, next up, close one in Minnesota. Tampa Bay, though, edges it out 20-17 over the Vikings. This game, I talked last year about Minnesota being the worst 13-win team. They got very, very lucky in one-score games. I think they won 8 or 9 very, very close one-score games. And ironically enough, first game of the year, they lose a one-score game and at home. And those turnovers they had were key. I thought, Tampa Bay has got a lot of veterans on that team. They've got a lot of guys that have been there, Super Bowl winners. So they're not, it's only a couple years ago they won Super Bowl 55. So they have still a lot of those guys on the roster. It really was going to come down to quarterback play. And I thought Baker played well. Didn't turn the ball over. He made some crucial third down plays. Got the ball to his playmakers in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And it'll be interesting to see what Tampa Bay does this year. It's really going to be relying on how well Baker plays. For Minnesota, I think that their offense is still explosive. I feel like Jefferson had a good game, especially for a good first half. There's a lot of, plays to be made on that team, and I think they're going to be competitive. I just don't think they're going to get to 13 wins again.
Yes, the NFC North, I think it's going to be very bad. I don't know if there's much bad that you can take away from this game. I think if Tampa Bay instead has those 2 turnovers, then maybe Minnesota wins.
Oh, of course.
Or maybe if they were split evenly, this game could have gone either way.
Right.
Tampa Bay looked good. Positives, Baker Mayfield, he did play pretty good. And I feel like, it was a close game. I don't think there's any negatives here. I think this is both. There's not much to see out of this game. I think Minnesota, they had a good offense except for the turnovers. Jordan Addison looked very good. So I think Minnesota, they might not be as good, and they might not be as lucky, but I don't think they're going to be like that bad.
Gotcha. Next up, it's a turnover crazy event down in New Orleans as the Saints hold off and beat the Tennessee Titans 16-15, another 1-point game. Very, very close game. A lot of turnovers. 2 very, very good defense. 2 teams that a lot of people are talking about. I think they're mid-tier. People probably thinking they're missing that top-tier quarterback talent. Derek Carr and Ryan Tannehill, 2 veteran quarterbacks to maybe make a Super Bowl run. But these teams both play hard. They play physical. And they're going to be a tough out for any team they play down the road. And that was proved evident in this game by how many turnovers and how tough these teams play. There was a lot of hitting going on, a lot of toughness on this field. I was excited to see Derek Carr get a win in his first home game with the Saints. He really didn't get a really great exit from being a really good locker room guy and a really good leader in Las Vegas, I felt. So it's unfortunate how his career ended there, but I'm glad to see him get another chance, and we'll see what happens with the Saints. Like I said, I think they'll compete with Atlanta for that division. Tennessee, I think with their physicality and their coach, they have a chance to compete with Jacksonville for that division. But not a lot to take from this game other than I think these 2 teams have good defense that'll give people fits.
Yes, the New Orleans, their passing offense looked quite good. With Olave had a good game. Rashid Shaheed had a good game.
Big catch in the fourth quarter.
Yes, and good defense, very close defensive game. I think 6 turnovers maybe. Derek Carr looked good. Brian Brzee, I believe he got in on maybe a sack. He did good first round pick. I think that the Saints, they could be a good team. I don't think they're as bad as the other as they were last year. I don't think that they're going to be bad as the NFC South is expected to be,
right.
As was last year. I think they have improved. I think they're good. Tennessee, good defense, good coach. I agree with that. So, yeah.
Next up, San Francisco goes into Pittsburgh and demolishes the Steelers. Steelers had tons of hype, me included. I was really surprised by the result. I wouldn't be surprised if you told me San Francisco win, but the fact that they came in and just smashed them in that first half. This game was over. It wasn't even watchable maybe after halftime, unless you're a San Francisco 49er fan, which I am not. San Francisco has a loaded roster. Brock Purdy coming back from that injury, we weren't sure what we were going to see, and he looked great.
Yeah.
His decision making was on point. He was getting rid of the ball quickly. Brandon Ayuk had an amazing game. They got the bill with Deebo Samuel. Obviously, McCaffrey had his big run. they were able to move the ball pretty well against what I think will be a decent Pittsburgh defense. The problem for Pittsburgh is Kenny Pickett played poorly. Now there was a video that came out where he was thrown to the ground, his head bounced off the ground. People like to talk about Tua and his concussions. People forget that Kenny Pickett had 2 concussions last year that caused him to miss time. I'm not sure if that affected his ability to throw the football through the rest of the game, his decision making, but it could have. I know we're trying to move forward with better protection for quarterbacks and better protection for NFL players in general when it comes to hits like that. But we got to pay attention to when guys get spun around and flung to the ground and their heads bounce like that. They need to be checked out properly. And he may have only been dazed, but I don't want to speculate if that affected his play. I think San Francisco wins this game easily, either way, based on what I saw. But it'll be interesting to see. San Francisco is San Francisco. They have that roster, and it really comes down to Birdie can play like he did in this game for the rest of the year. Boy, oh boy, watch out, NFC.
Yes, I think Pittsburgh, they had a lot of hype, and their offense just did not do it. I mean, San Francisco is a great defense. You could say Pittsburgh, maybe they have a great offense against like a team with a bad defense, or even like a just mediocre defense. But this was just not good at all. Kenny Pickett, he did not play well, and lots of like bad throws, a few drops. Didn't get anything done in the run game. And San Francisco, they're still San Francisco. They're still that same team that's just so complete and just so good. So I feel like the hype on Pittsburgh, maybe eventually, maybe this was just because they're playing the 49ers. You have to wonder, but maybe they just aren't as good as we think. Or
who knows? Long season.
Yeah.
I'm still optimistic because I did pick them to win the division, but we don't need to talk about that. All right, next up, the Commanders hold off the Cardinals 20-16. It's weird phrasing to say that, but they did. They actually had to come back in the fourth quarter to beat Arizona. But the great thing about this, we know about Daniel Snyder selling the team, Josh Harris taking over as the ownership or majority owner. Obviously, there's some minority owners, but the great thing is the way the fans were electric in that stadium. I mean, they need a new stadium, but they were electric, and they brought celebrities here. The culture is slowly starting to change. Remember, this was a proud franchise. Everybody remembers how good they were in the 80s and early 90s. And for them to see, Dan Snyder's ownership in the last 20 years just be so poor, it's good to see that franchise turn its, play around. Ron Rivera, I don't know if he's going to stay the head coach for a long time. I thought Sam Howell looked okay. The defense looked good. But I'll be honest with you, I was more impressed with Arizona in this game. I thought Arizona, with the moves they made in the preseason, with the fact they released Colt McCoy, brought in Josh Dobbs right before the season starts, and then made him the starter. And he played. You can't be mad about how he played. He gave you guys a chance to win. They still have some speed on the offense. They've got some guys, but on the, Budda Baker still on defense. I was just really amazed with their effort. I thought the guys were flying around for Arizona, and I was kind of impressed. Washington does have a good front seven. I think they're playing a really difficult division with Philadelphia and Dallas. I don't know what they're going to do for the season, but I will just say that I was really happy for this moment for Washington fans to have that new ownership, get that first win of the season. It was really cool to see that.
Yeah, I think Washington is kind of underrated. I feel like their D-line is just so good. I feel that their defense is good. They have their secondary is improving. And yes, Arizona looks good. Mate looks pretty good. They didn't look that bad as.
Right. Everybody thinks they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league, right?
Yeah, maybe everyone thinks that they're going to have the number one overall pick or something. Maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe they're I don't know, like 4 or 5 or something.
Yeah.
Something a little bit better than that. I think this is good for Washington. I think that honestly, I think that they could even maybe beat out the Giants.
Oh, well. All right. We'll talk about the Giants later. Next up, Baltimore beats Houston 25-9. Now I thought this game was going to be a blowout. That score is kind of misleading. It was close until late third quarter, and then Baltimore kind of pulled away. There's been a lot of talk about Baltimore's new offensive coordinator, and Lamar threw a pick in this game. He ran the ball a few times like he used to, but their passing offense wasn't as great as I thought it would be, and I think this game is not truly indicative of what we're going to see for Baltimore going forward, and I'm really curious to see as the season progresses what we're going to see of that passing offense. I will say that I'm heartbroken for J.K. Dobbins. Poor guy can just not get healthy, Achilles injury. It's just, I hate seeing injuries week one. I hate seeing injuries at all, let's be honest, but it's just that guy just can't win a break. They have a deep running back room and they'll be all right, but just for him as a player, I'm upset. C.J. Stroud, the other, another rookie, had his first start. I thought he played decently against a Baltimore defense that I'm kind of suspect of. We'll see. They don't have too much explosion, but Houston's defense under DeMeco Ryans may be the surprise here. They played pretty well against what we think will be a pretty good Baltimore offense. And Will Anderson had a decent game. I think it'll be interesting to see if the culture truly changes under DeMeco as a head coach there in Houston.
Yes. I think Will Anderson, he looked good. He had a pretty good game. Of course, C.J. Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
On Baltimore, I feel like they brought in OBJ and Zay Flowers in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Both their wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 immediately.
Right.
And I feel like they had some good moments, but overall their offense, they still beat Houston, like pretty bad. But, their offense wasn't that amazing.
Right. I agree. We'll see. All right, next up, a team that got some hype. I would say some. Mostly in Chicago, though, and that's the Bears. But they got manhandled by their rival on week 1 at home after what they felt was a promising offseason. Green Bay beats them 38-20, and that's with Chicago scoring a late touchdown. It was 38-13 at one point. Packer fans have to be rejoicing of this. Jordan Love is first true, he's played some games. He's played some time. It's not his first time in the regular season, but this is his team now. Rodgers is gone. And they're a very young team. They're actually the youngest team in the league. They've got some weapons, but Christian Watson didn't play with an injury. Aaron Jones played for most of the game, but then came up with a hamstring injury. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. But Romeo Doubs looks good. And this game really, to me, is not so much about Green Bay, who I thought would be good. I think they have a really good offensive line. I think their defense is going to be a little better. This game is more about Chicago. Their defense did not look good. Matt Eberflus is supposed to be a defensive guy. They've added more pieces on the defense. They paid some money for the linebacking core, but they just couldn't slow down Green Bay at all. They looked unorganized. And they didn't let Justin Fields throw the ball down the field. If you look at his passing chart, everything is like 10 yards. And you brought in DJ Moore. He's a great deep threat. He didn't get that many targets. I don't really know what the offensive game plan is. I really don't know what you're trying to do. And it's unfortunate. I think maybe, we talked about first coaches fired, and it's something people like to bet on. If we don't see Chicago making a leap this year under influence, he could be someone that goes away. They really need something to change in Chicago, and I'm not sure what it is yet.
Yeah. Green Bay, Jordan Love looks good. He could be franchise quarterback, maybe.
Right.
After the first game, he looked very good. Aaron Jones had a great game in the second half.
Free Aaron Jones.
Until he got injured. Chicago. It was a high scoring game, so I feel like looking at that 20 points looks pretty good, but But if you can take that into consideration, isn't that great? 18 points by Green Bay. Yeah, I feel like people
18-point win, you mean?
Yeah. 18-point win. 18-point win is what I meant. They scored 38 points. And I feel like a lot of people talking about the Lions. Green Bay, they could also be in consideration. I feel like it's just anyone but the Bears, really, for the NFC North.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, next up, the Denver Broncos lose in the same score as they lost in Week 1 last year, 17-16, this time at home. In these Week 1 games, there's reason to be excited. There's reason to not, everybody calls it overreaction, between Weeks 1 and 2. How are we going to overreact? And we're trying to be objective here and look at games in a way. And I think, in that first half, Russell Wilson looked better than he did last year. He was getting rid of the ball quickly. He was making decisions. I think the Vegas adjusted and did enough to win in the second half. I thought Jimmy G looked good. Ironically enough, they went for that onside kick in the first play of the game, and the Raiders got it, and they gave him a short field, and they got that early touchdown. Maybe been the difference. I think we're going to see Denver offensively get better throughout the year. Jerry Jeudy didn't play. He'll be back, and I think we'll get a better version of Russell Wilson throughout the year based on what I saw in that first half. I don't think the Raiders are that great of a football team, but I thought Jimmy G played well. Let's hope that Jimmy G stays healthy for 16 games. Let's see what happens with him in Vegas. Max Crosby is one of my favorite players in the NFL just because of his effort. He just never takes a play off. So it's going to be interesting in this division, with Kansas City losing Week 1, like Denver lost. We'll talk about what happened with the Chargers soon, but this division is going to be interesting. Who's going to be fighting for that number 2 spot? I still think Kansas City wins. But these interdivision battle of games between everyone in that division is going to be a little interesting this year, especially. I think people are going to be surprised by some of the results. Especially because of how dominant Kansas City has been for the last 7 years, or ever since Andy Reid got there.
Yes, I feel like Las Vegas. I think they have a good offensive showing. I feel like their receiving core is good. Jacoby Myers, he had a good game.
2 touchdowns.
Yeah. And with Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers and Hunter Renfrow, they have 2 tight ends, which could be good. Michael Mayer, the rookie, and Jimmy Garoppolo, he played well. So, I don't know, how well the season is going to be with their defense. They have a good pass rush, but and a pretty good offense, but how they're in a weird spot. So
yes.
Very weird spot. Don't know exactly how it's gonna go for the Raiders. And it's them and the Broncos. I don't really know how it's gonna be between them. In the bottom of the AFC West. And the Broncos. I feel like Russell Wilson. I feel like people. Of course, when Russell Wilson, the Broncos had hype last season, and then Russell Wilson was bad, and that was just everyone. Everything everyone was talking about was Russell Wilson, how bad he was. I think he could get back to at least playing okay. I think that he might be a decent starting quarterback for Denver. So I feel like with that, they have a good defense, good secondary with Pat Surtain, one of the best cornerbacks in the league, and Justin Simmons, one of the best safeties in the league, tied for the lead in interceptions last season. So I feel like,
it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
Very interesting.
I don't think there's a lot we can be worrisome or positive about from these 2 teams. So we need some more information. We'll see. Next up, Eagles going to New England, ruin Tom Brady Day in Foxborough, and beat the Patriots 25-20. Uh, you know, the Eagles, Darius Slay had a big interception return for a touchdown. It was big. But I was really impressed with New England's defense. I feel like they played well, and I thought besides the pick that Mac Jones threw, I thought Mac Jones played pretty well, and they had a chance to win this game late. One foot on that catch on the sideline, and they have a chance, to maybe win the game in the last few seconds. But, with the AFC East the way it is shaking out, it's going to be very interesting. And, Philadelphia, I don't think a lot has changed. I know Jalen Carter played really, really well. It's just going to be dominant pass rush. But there's going to be some issues up the middle of that defense for Philadelphia. I think better teams may take advantage. I think Mac Jones was able to throw the ball on them. So it'll be really interesting to see when Philadelphia plays some really stronger opponents, and they have a more difficult schedule this year. But I was surprised how well New England played in this game.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have that much to add. I feel like this was the expected result. Maybe a bit more of a win for Philadelphia was expected, but New England has a pretty good defense. Gonzalez, the rookie, adding to their secondary, which is pretty good. Yeah.
Okay. Next up, the most exciting game on Sunday. And that is the Miami Dolphins going into LA and beating the Chargers 36-34. Tyreek Hill, have yourself a day, sir. And Tua. Let's not forget Tua. Now, I think when a lot of people looked at Tua and looked at Tua's tape, obviously his injuries last year were really scary, and people like to compare these two quarterbacks. If you didn't watch that game, go back and watch it. Find a way to watch it. Watch the highlights and watch the throws Tua is making that game. Now, Mike McDaniels comes from Kyle Shanahan's tree, and obviously there's a lot of pre-design, this is where the ball is going before the snap. But what I saw from Tua that really impressed me in this game was some off-platform throws, some plays in the pocket where he had to move, make passes on the run, throws on the run. And there were pinpoint accuracy. His accuracy in this game was crazy. I mean, it does help when you have Tyreek Hill, who I don't think can be guarded one-on-one, and he's getting free releases into the secondary. Just so hard to guard. So I think Miami's going to be the most exciting offense this year, and I don't think that's going to stop. Remember, the Chargers have a lot of players on that defense. J.C. Jackson was back this game. Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James. It's not like this defense was just a bunch of nobodies. They had players on this defense. So really impressive win. I like the Chargers' offensive balance to be able to run the ball. Herbert looked good. The Chargers found a way to charge at this game, of course. It's unfortunate for them and Chargers fans. We'll see. Brandon Staley, he really needs a good showing. I think he could be one of the coaches fired if the Chargers start off really bad, especially with Kellen Moore sitting there waiting in the wings. Maybe he could be the next coach. I'm not the first person to think this, but I think Miami's going to be really, really exciting. And I think that defense is only going to get better under Vic Fangio once he really hones in what he can do with that personnel.
Yes, this was a very exciting game. This was my favorite game to watch out of all of these in week one. Very high scoring, very close. This could have gone either way, I think. But of course, the Chargers, they charged it because I don't know. They're very complete. They're a complete team. I don't know. I mean, when they're just in the shadow of the Chiefs in the AFC West in the strong division. I don't know what it's going to take for them to finally be one of the best teams in the AFC.
They have the talent, they have the roster.
Yeah.
There's just something missing. It doesn't make sense. All right, last afternoon game on Sunday, and the hardest one for me to talk about. The Rams go into Seattle and just ruin the start of the season for the Seahawks by winning 30-13. Now, There's a lot of speculation about the Rams. There was rumors that they tried to trade Stafford in the offseason. Questions if Aaron Donald would come back. Obviously, Cooper Kupp didn't play this game. He's going on IR because of his hamstring. They've got a bunch of unsigned rookies, the most undrafted rookies, on their roster of any NFL team. And here they do. They go into Seattle. They're down 13-7 at half. They come out in the second half and they just dismantle the Seahawks. Now, you may forget that how good Matt Stafford is. You go back and watch that tape. He's making pinpoint throws. Seattle couldn't get the Rams off the field on third down. I think that first half they may have been 5 for 5 on third downs. It's just unbelievable what Stafford was able to do. And he picked apart the middle of the field against Seattle defense, which when they're doing that cover 3 base, middle of the field is where you attack, and he was attacking with a unknown receiver, Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell. These guys aren't household names, but he used them, and they played the role of Cooper Kupp and dismantled that Seahawks defense. If you look at Seattle, you're like, well, we're up 13-7 at half. What happened? Well, they lose both their their second-year tackles. Tyler Lockett goes out with a concussion. Everybody gets hurt. This happens. But they got punched in the mouth, the Seahawks, and they didn't respond. And if you're a Seattle fan, like I am, it was a hard watch. It was a very hard watch. But, I'm going to take this as objectively. I think everybody forgot how good a quarterback Matthew Stafford can be. He got the ball quickly. He got the ball out accurately. And it was a big difference in that game.
Yeah, some people, they think the Rams are going to be bad like last year. Maybe they improve a little bit. Some people think that. Seattle, they didn't have a very strong showing. Their run defense, I think, improved a little bit, but they just, overall, their defense, the Rams' offense just weren't able to stop them.
Yeah.
And the Seattle offense just couldn't get going again. So I feel like this was a game that people were expecting Seattle to win based on how they did last year and based on, they had a good draft and how the Rams did last year. But, the Rams don't have, their players are healed up. Except for Cooper Kupp and that was a problem for the Rams last year. That's part of the reason they went 5-12. All of their injuries, and the Rams now they're back. They're ready to play better, and I think they might improve this season.
Next up, Sunday night game, primetime game. Everybody's excited, and it's almost like the Giants forgot they were playing. Cowboys come into New York and drop a 40 nugget right in the Giants' lap, 40-0. Now, Cowboys have kind of owned the Giants, especially when Dak plays. The Cooper Rush beat the Giants last year. So that Dallas defense is scary. They keep coming, and they keep coming. And if they're going to play that way all year long, Dak's not going to have to do much. He probably won't throw 10 picks like he said he won't. Because he's not going to have to be in position to do so. He's not going to have to be in a position to, have to make comebacks. I just was really impressed with how attacking they were. Brian Daboll on the New York Giants sideline just couldn't believe what he was watching. Just turnovers, blocked field goals. If it could go wrong, it did go wrong. And it's just a horrible way to start the season if you're the Giants. But I was really high on Dallas coming into the season, mainly because of that defense. And I think they have a really complete roster. If they can stay healthy, they're going to be really, really tough out in the NFC. And that division race between them and the Eagles is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I don't see any way that the Giants could have won this. I feel like the defense just outplayed their offense just so much. I feel like the only person that they could have thrown to was Darren Waller, but he didn't have a great game. He had some receptions, but the Dallas defense was just able to stop the offense. They don't really have a true wide receiver one in New York. So with Trayvon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore at cornerbacks, they were just able to stop them. The Giants couldn't do anything on offense, and I don't think they could have in any way.
Yeah. All right, now let's get to Monday night. And there may have not been more hype regarding any team in the NFL than the New York Jets in the offseason they had. They get Aaron Rodgers. They get their guy. They do Hard Knocks. They got a little positive press from that. Aaron Rodgers, great guy. These young stars, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall, all these things. A lot of positive. Quinn Williams. All these great things. Great defense coming back. They're going to improve this offense. And then 4 plays in. 4 plays in. Aaron Rodgers down. And not only just down, Achilles, ruptured, gone, down for the year, out for the count. You know, the crowd went crazy when he came onto the field, and it's just for a franchise that has a rough history. You know, everybody remembers Super Bowl III, but that was 54 years ago, 55 years ago. They don't have a great history since then. I mean, Joe Namath basically is in the Hall of Fame because of that one game. But it's a franchise that's tortured. And, you know, to see that happen to them is rough. Now, what happened in the game after that, you know, you could have just packed it in. And they didn't. They were down 13-3. They kept fighting. Josh Allen kept giving them the ball, which helps. Jordan White had 3 picks. You know, Zach Wilson didn't turn the ball over. They didn't let him. They made him throw a bunch of screen passes. Garrett Wilson had an amazing catch in the end zone to get them a touchdown. And the punt return was electric. But going forward for the Jets, you know, Saleh came out and said today that Zach Wilson is our quarterback. This is his team. Is it? Is it really his team? I know you want to say that because you want to give confidence behind it because you don't really have a backup plan yet, but I know you're making some phone calls. I know you probably called Matt Ryan. You may have called Philip Rivers. Heck, you may have called Tom Brady. I don't know, but that roster is way too talented to give up on this season. But I will do one thing. I really want to implore the NFL, and I know they're not going to see this or watch this most likely, but I have to say it, that it's ridiculous we don't have grass fields at every stadium. We're talking about an industry that makes billions of dollars, $12 billion revenue every year. And there's no excuse why you can't put grass on every field in the league. Should happen. Should happen. Has to happen. This affects your product. This product that brings you a lot of money is affected by your ability to keep players healthy. And you talk about player safety. This is a big thing. Grass is better for people when it comes to being tackled. Better for people in lower body injuries when it comes to Achilles and knee injuries and even some foot injuries. So make the change. Make it mandatory. You're doing it for the World Cup. Do it for your league. Anyways, that's my little rant about that. As for Buffalo, Josh Allen stopped turning the ball over. You're up 13-3. This game was over. And then you kept giving them chances. Interception. Fumble. Just got to be better. Got to do it.
Yeah, going into this game, I thought the Bills were going to win. But, you know, they just broke down. And the Jets were able to pick it up. Zach Wilson, there were questions about, you know, like he looked like horrible last season. And, you know, like maybe, you know, Aaron Rodgers, of course, seeing a little bit on Hard Knocks, maybe like he can coach it, maybe he's been coaching him to, maybe he's going to be better, but we don't know exactly how that's going to go. And I feel like this loss comes down to maybe Josh Allen. I feel like he
How
made
can you not?
mistakes.
4 turnovers.
I mean, I feel like the reason that people usually put Mahomes and Burrow ahead of him is the aggressiveness, the turnovers. I feel like he had some bad decision making in this game. Um, and I think there is hope. With this offense, I feel like Kincaid, I think he looks like he's going to be really good. The defense, I feel like they could be good. This is great for the Jets. The comeback win, the punt return for the touchdown in OT.
Super exciting.
I feel like this is the game that has the most questions coming out of it. I feel like, like, how is Zach Wilson going to do? Are the Jets, are they going to be that good? The Bills, how are they going to do? Josh Allen, he did not play well. Yeah.
All right, so that's it for our Week 1 recap. Really exciting, a lot of stuff going on. Excited for the season. Now let's talk about Week 2 already. We're going to do Thursday. I want to remind you that we're going to do another pod on Friday to talk about the rest of the games that happen on Sunday and Monday. And I think that'll be the schedule we have going forward. Do a Tuesday recap, talk about Thursday night game, and then do a Friday preview pod for the weekend. But let's get into our Thursday night matchup. These teams, ironically enough, on a primetime matchup, met last year, Week 2, but on Monday night, not Thursday night, in Philadelphia as well. But the Vikings lost to them 24-7. But Minnesota is going back, seeking revenge, trying to climb out of that 0-1 hole against the Eagles at their home opener. What do you see happening in this game?
So I feel like, last season, this was one of the games that was, you could say a bit of a blowout loss. I mean, this, it was like this, the Cowboys, the Lions, and the Packers were, those were their blowout losses. That's what made us question how good they actually were. And this is, their offense, I think, could be good. The Eagles, I feel like I don't know if there's much to say. I mean, they're just really good. And I feel like Minnesota does have a chance to potentially get an upset win.
Okay.
But I don't know if you can rely on that. I feel like you have to go with Philadelphia for this game.
I do too. I know that they're giving Vegas is giving Philadelphia 7 points. They don't think it's a close game either. My problem with this matchup is for Minnesota is, can they do enough in the run game to keep the pressure off Kirk Cousins? Last year he threw 3 picks against Philadelphia, and a lot of that was due to the pressure. He was trying to get the ball to Jefferson. Darius Slay had a great game covering. Jefferson, I think he had 2 picks in that game. And Philadelphia's ability to get pass rush with 4 or 5 pass rushers without really sending a lot of blitzes, drop a lot of guys into coverage.
3-4 now.
There's a tough matchup for Minnesota. Minnesota really has to find a way to have balance on offense to keep that defensive line guessing and keep the pressure off Cousins. They're going to have to get the ball out of his hands quickly on short passes or be able to run the ball, and we're going to have to see a better game from that running game. That was the problem with them last year, Minnesota. I feel like in a lot of these games that they had one-score games, their inability to be balanced with their run and pass game. And it's really going to be a problem for them. This is a prime example of that. If they could run the ball.
Especially now with Alexander Madison and Dalvin Cook gone.
Yeah. If they could have balance on offense, it really would, make a difference. But I really think they're going to struggle again. I really see this game going in Philadelphia's way. Not really a bold prediction, but I just don't think this is a great matchup for Minnesota. And it's going to be rough to start in a 0-2 hole. And there's going to be a lot of questions in Minnesota, especially after the year they had last year with 13 wins. But for Philadelphia, they're going to keep the ball rolling. I think Minnesota maybe will score more than 7 points this time. But I think I see Philadelphia rolling this one. Give me a score like 31-14. All right, that's it for our recap podcast and preview for Thursday night. We will do another one on Friday like we discussed. Thank you for watching. We're sort of planning to do this all throughout the season. If you have any ideas or anything you want to comment, please let us know. I appreciate it. Like and subscribe and comment. Otherwise, have a great week.